Hey, Steve Mignani here with some really good junkyard news. If you're going to be anywhere near Sherman, Texas on March 24th and 25th, know that there's going to be an outdoor auction put on by duncansauctions.com of over 200 solid Texas parts vehicles. It's going to be Fords, GM, Mopar, lots of tractors, and even forklifts. These things all have to go. It's an online auction, but also an on-site auction. If you happen to be in Sherman, Texas, you can go and bid in person or again, online, but all 200 vehicles have to go. Don't let them get crushed. To learn more about this auction, which happens on March 24th and 25th of 2023, check it out on duncansauctions.com. And keep in mind, if you're seeing this after March 24th or 25th, 2003, the auction's over with. But before then, make sure you check it out and save some of these cars. Don't let them go to the crusher. Hey, Steve Mignani here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardstown, Massachusetts, with a 1965 Chevrolet Chevelle 300 DeLuxe. What's a 300? Well, we'll get to that in a second, but you got to remember, 65 was the second year for the mid-size Chevelle and Malibu A-body platforms. And as popular as they were, 14% of all Chevy sales were Malibu and Chevelle in 1964. By 1970, 22% were midsize. But again, as popular as these were, the full-size cars still did most of the selling on the showroom floor. But again, this one is a 300 DeLuxe. You got to remember that they weren't all Malibus. In fact, the Chevelle lineup went Chevelle 300, Chevelle 300 DeLuxe, Malibu, and then Malibu Super Sport in 1965. And this one here is a Chevelle 300 DeLuxe. Don't call it a Malibu. And this is one of 41,600 built, of which most were four-door sedans like this. And speaking of sedan, in the 300 and 300 DeLuxe lineup, you could not get a convertible or a hardtop. There were strictly sedans of the 2- and 4-door variety with a different roofline or wagons. Now this one here is kind of interesting. We see 230 on the front fender right there, and that's the inline 6-cylinder engine. It is now long gone, but we can take a peek here and notice that this was a very basic car. Had a heater, no air conditioning, of course. This one probably had manual brakes, hard to say. And here's the rod type accelerator linkage right here. There'd been a rod going to the carburetor. By this point in time, Chrysler was using cables, but GM was still using rods. And we see here color code, okay, KK, artesian turquoise, and KK refers to artesian turquoise on the lower and on the roof. You could actually get a two-tone paint treatment if you wanted it, but when you see the K and the K, that means the artesian turquoise was on the body and on the roof long ago. Now, we can also see something here. This little ground strap tells us this car was born with a radio. So we'll get to that in a minute. When cars were radio delete, there was no need to ground the ignition because there's no radio to interfere with. But here's a cool little detail right here. The 1965 Chevelle popular size highway performer. Gannon Motors, Westboro, Massachusetts, way back when. And let's look through this real quick. Now this is kind of cool. The top line was the Malibu Super Sport, but notice this right here, those two horizontal little faux vents, those did not make production. I've never seen an actual car with those things. So sometimes dealer brochures can show you things that are maybe not going to happen after all. And that's an example. Of course, the Malibu was not an SS, but again, this was the spiffy version, convertibles, hardtops, beautiful stuff. And then you get into the cheaper stuff, the 300 DeLuxe. Now, what made a 300 DeLuxe different from a 300 was this chrome trim here. You can see it on this car right down here, on the doors and on the fenders, this right here. And that was a $79 difference. There's more stuff inside. We'll get to that. But again, the 300 was the base car here, the wagons, kind of the family movers, very popular stuff. And then, of course, more of the Super Sport blooper right there. Look at that. And we can see right there, those little scoops never happened, those vents. And again, it's interesting. Sometimes, if you restore your car based on a dealer brochure, you can be led astray. This is exactly why right here. This is kind of cool right here. The wagon lineup, we can see on the right, that's a two-door 6-cylinder wagon right there, or the 6-passenger, I should say. So two-door Chevelle wagons, oh yeah, they made them, but most were 4 doors. But getting into the engine compartment, that 230 cubic inch engine right there, $37 extra, and basically what it was, it had the same 3¼ inch stroke as the 194, which was the base engine with 120 horse, but another 20 horse for 140 thanks to an overbore of 3/8 of an inch. And you could even get that six-banger, either one of these, in the Super Sport, believe it or not. Now, we've got to remember, too, that 1965 was the year of the mighty Z16. The 396, there was only 201 built, and there's no mention to it in this catalog, probably because it was such a limited production thing, it just didn't make that much of a wave. Now, one thing about all of these cars that's really weird, except for the Z16, is how they all have the same brakes. This tiny little 9.5-inch drum right here. No disc brakes on any Chevelle or Malibu till you get into 1967. So they all had this dinky little 9.5-inch. Even the SS 396 in 1966 had dinky 6-cylinder brakes. Why? But along those lines, this thing here is kind of cool. We've shown this before. I found this here at Bernardston Auto Wrecking. What this looks like is a Buick drum, the big aluminum. This is not. This actually is from a GTO or a Buick GS 400, 1965-66. This actually was an option on GTO or Buick. And again, it's a 9.5-incher, but it has an aluminum outer that's ribbed. And these are pretty uncommon. These will bolt on to an SS396, no problem. The spindle's the same. It's all quite the same. But we can see here where the hub is integrally pressed, really hard to get out of there, whereas the iron drums are two-piece. They float. You can actually take them off with ease. But again, these aluminum drums are often overlooked. But here's the crazy part. On 66 and 67 SS 396 Chevelles, you couldn't get the aluminum drums, but you could get them on a GTO or an Olds 442. Kind of weird. They would have worked, but GM didn't go there. Who knows why? Getting back to this puppy here, this one does have the we'll maybe go to the other side on this one, get the door to open up. But again, this is the four-door sedan, a very basic transportation mobile. And again, with the DeLuxe component, we'll notice that the floor mat, which is made out of rubber, just like the 300 Deluxe has a rubber floor mat, but on the 300 Deluxe, it's color-coded. It's green to match the rest of the interior. But again, you didn't get carpeting until you went into the world of Malibu. Now this one here does have the AM radio, which was a $59 option. And again, that ground strap we saw on the firewall is another part of that picture right there. The speedometer on this goes to 120. The middle, that center circle is blanked out. That's where you would have got the tachometer or the clock, depending on your option. If you didn't, well, that's how Chevy punished you for being cheap. A little block off. But again, this one, four-door hardtop, or excuse me, sedan. And of course, sedan always means fixed B-pillar, door frames. And the beauty of the door frame really is that unlike a hardtop where there's no window frame, when the windows are rolled up, they're sort of floating in the air, and they rely on rubber seals here to keep the wind and the rain out. That stuff dries up. You got a misty, windy kind of a car, whereas sedans, they're pretty much airtight in a much better way. Moving to the back of this thing here, we can see here it is right here, Chevelle 300 Deluxe. And again, most people say that the 300, that's a Chrysler 300. Nope, Chevelle 300 Deluxe. And again, one thing that makes the Deluxe different from the lesser 300 is on the door. I'll meet you around here. Believe it or not, on the Chevelle 300, the stripper, you didn't get armrests on the back seats. You got them up front. But on a 300 Deluxe, check it out right here. There's the armrest right there, part of your $79 upcharge for the Deluxe 300. Believe it or not, a standard 300, no armrest in the back. How much could Chevrolet have saved by not including maybe an 89-cent armrest on the base Deluxe, or Deluxe 300, I should say. But again, there it is. It just, nickels and dimes add up. When you're building, hundreds of thousands of vehicles, 5 cents adds up. Before we end this video, let's check out what's inside the trunk. And you gotta love how Chevrolet did spend the time to have the Chevrolet words spelled out here instead of having a one-piece emblem, which would be a lot quicker to install on the assembly line. Kind of a nice little flourish inside. Okay, here's the artesian turquoise color, still kind of shiny right here, but rust has definitely taken hold on this one. But here's the Zolatone trunk paint, this textured paint right here. It's not quite powder coating, but it's pretty rugged stuff. And that's what you want to apply in your Chevelle or your Malibu if you're storing it today. There's some goodies right here. Look at this, some Marvel Mystery Oil, an old can of this stuff. Add to gas and oil, top cylinder lubrication. There it is. And of course, some Davis baking powder. There you go, double acting. And somebody probably made a cake or did something with this. And yeah, so this Chevelle, don't call it a Malibu, this Chevelle 300 Deluxe is probably going to stay right here at Berniston Auto Wrecking. But if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Maggs YouTube channel, and be sure to subscribe and even ring the bell so that Katie here is aware and can be fed. It's very important to have that. We have to have feed for the dog. All right, we'll see you tomorrow with more Junkyard and Crawl.